Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Monday night show. Of course, we got John, MJ, and myself, and we do want to thank everybody for taking time out of their Monday night, whether you're watching this at the same time as you're watching some basketball game that I don't know why you would do that. But anyway, maybe you're doing it at the same time, or maybe you're catching us in rerun because you were doing something else on the Monday night. Whatever happens to be the case, thank you for taking some time out of your schedule to join us as we talk about talking.
I think that would be safe to say yes. I believe so. Talking about talking.
How did I word it on my page? Hold on. I worded it. It's coming up here.
Yeah.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. We are talking mic talk. We are talking mic talk tonight.
Yeah, miking talk mics. Talking mic
check.
talk,
we're talking mic talk.
Talking microphone. Talking.
But not a Ben Stowe microphone usage.
No. He's got a different. He's got a different.
We are not doing that kind of thing. So this will be stuff that the average person can understand because it'll be way below anything that they would be able to think of because that's the way we do it. Ben Stowe talks to the average person, and we're way below that. So.
No, there's sometimes
I know where the on switch is.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes Ben's like 4 or 5 up here somewheres, and I've got to basically interpret things. Okay, so the Gusenhatzer and the Wissewurzer, those things have to be turned to the left, right? Yes. Okay, just turn them to the left. That's all you need to know. Turn them to the left.
He's Yoda. The rest of us are stormtroopers.
Yeah, something. That's about the way it is. But yeah, tonight I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the microphone, how much DJs use microphones. And obviously that depends on the type of events you do. But I think in the realm of the DJ, we talked to people who were early in the DJ profession in New York, and they were doing the clubs and they were doing the house parties. Microphones they didn't even have in many cases. I've talked to people who've said we had speakers and we had our turntables, and that was it. It wasn't a microphone to be had. Then at a certain point in time, then you had an MC who came in there who kind of did the hyping of the crowd and would, in some situations, do some of that rapping along. And that was really the first time that the two kind of merged and came together. As time went on, then the DJ started to do more of that themselves, and they would use the microphone to hype the crowd, do different things. Weddings, DJs became more into weddings. Then it was making announcements and becoming that master of ceremonies for that side of things. And it's really evolved from not using it and then using it as an entertainment tool. And then it became, a number of years ago, the predominant. There were people who were being hired because of their MC skills. We continue to move forward now in 2021, and the discussion becomes is, where are we at today? What do people want from their DJ when it comes to the microphone?
I ask that question all the time. What do you want from me? I don't think that's what you mean.
Yeah, well, it could be. It really could be. Depending upon the crowd and what their expectations are. And I think that's probably the biggest discussion is there a overlying expectation today when it comes to the DJ type entertainment?
I would say it's definitely evolved a little bit, and from the standpoint that, I can think back 5-10 years ago where I would get an email from somebody or an inquiry about their wedding, and we'd be talking, and the question would come up, now, do you make all the announcements? Are you going to introduce us and talk, when the events come up, are you going to be on the microphone doing that? And so it was almost like at the time I was like, what do you mean? Of course I am. Like that was, to me, that was a given. Mm-hmm. But for the guests or for the clients, it was kind of like, we need to ask that. I can't recall being asked that at all. I would say probably within the last 3 years, maybe one offhand, but come to think of it, it was like the one I'm thinking of was like an older couple, like the second or third marriage, like old school thinking, because it's been a while. So, I really think it's become just a assumed thing at this point.
And I wonder when it's become that assumed that it's going to be there, and then at what level, because there can be people who are just making announcements. Let's call it kind of the radio DJ thing. It's like, hey, we're going to be slowing it down. We're going to speed it up. Hey, the next song is from Bob Seger, and it's going to be great for your dance floor. Come on out. that type of a microphone person. Then there's the kind where they would be making announcements that we'll be getting to the dollar dance, or we want Bobby and Susie out on the floor so they can do this special spotlight dance, the announcement type DJ. And then there's the crowd hype. Mike Walter does a lot of talking about this, where it's like, the okay, everybody, you know it, dun, 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 that kind of a thing. Is there one that is expected and the others aren't? Or is it something that these are all expected in today's world?
For weddings, I'm going to say the middle one is the one that is expected. The middle one whereas, the announcements of, hey, it's going to be time for the cake cutting. Let's gather everybody over here. All right, now let's put a hand together for Bobby and Susie as they go to their first dance, like just the basic, and here comes, the people in through the doors. Like I don't think there's a lot of expectation for the hyping. And I really think that the radio DJ-esque style is really not expected. I don't run into that much, and if it is, I'm going to assume it's in a different clientele that I'm reaching out to, or that's reaching out to me. Just because I've run into that a couple times, but not in like 20 years have I been to an event where I've had a DJ do that, into like all the songs or into a lot of them.
MJ, in the club's scene that you work through, are there different types of DJs as far as using the microphone and they're doing different things with it? Or is it pretty much uniform in your area and in your market that the music does the talking and there's no microphone?
That all depends on what shirt you're wearing. No. Would just like to point out the fact that I try to do a theme shirt every week. I thought Dan was going to ask me.
I'm going to. It's just not yet.
Yeah, not yet.
The only shirt I had that had a microphone was this Mackie shirt that on the back, the guy has a little microphone in his hand. That's all I had for microphones.
Turn around so we can watch we'll just watch the microphone for the rest of the show. Please do it backwards. Okay, great. So anyway, MJ, tell us.
The mic's not going to pick up back there because it's right here.
Not so much.
It varies a lot. I'm going to give you that much because I have DJed in clubs where they flat out tell you don't talk on the mic. There's no microphone there to plug in. They don't want microphones. There's several places I DJ at. They don't want a microphone. Other places, it's minimal, last call, or an emergency, or something like that. Other places, every hour I want you to say something. Other ones, it's bananas crazy, whatever you want, it doesn't matter. A lot of them, the owner or manager is the only one allowed to talk on the mic. So they will get on there and ramble half drunk about something while you're just trying to do your job, and then they pick up the thing like, hey, you guys want to hear that song from the 80s, right? I know you all do. And I'm going, oh my word, I just want to stab him, me, or everyone. Whichever puts us all out of the misery first. But primarily the ones I do, it's minimal talking. It's mainly your mixability is what you're hired for. But you'll do certain things here or there. I usually will wait to a certain point in the evening and welcome everybody, but usually it's when everybody's there. And there's this whole thing called a cheap pop. I don't know if you know what cheap pops are. So imagine you're going to see a band, and wherever town you're from, the band goes, hello, so-and-so, and it says the name of the town. That's a cheap pop because everyone's going to cheer, but he makes no effort to make the crowd cheer. So I'll do cheap pops, so I'm like, oh, what's going on, guys? Something, I don't even know, something like that. Like, right. You guys are freaking awesome, something like that, and then they'll cheer. That's a cheap pop. So that will be a little bit of communication. But most of the time, you're just mixing little things here or there. We try to avoid shout-outs, birthdays, because once that starts, it never ends. I'll at most, if I get a lot of people for birthdays, I'll just at one time go, hey, I can't do individual birthdays, but this goes out to everybody who's having a birthday this week, and then they cheer, and I play some birthday song, and they like that. But it varies wildly. It really does. That's all I can say. So
we don't have a lot of clubs in my town, but for the two that we have, there's a lot of promotion. So there's a little bit of a hype that goes into it, but it's a lot of promotion, a lot of, tipping the bartenders, getting crazy, shout outs to local colleges and things like that.
Question?
Sure.
When you say bar, okay, describe the inside layout of the place.
So
is it primarily wide open for dancing, or are there a bunch of tables and stuff with some area to dance?
No tables. Okay. So one particular place is in an old jail, so it's kind of a little weird. So the main room, a bar, floor. That's it. No tables or anything like that. Now, COVID might be changed things for them.
Right. Yeah.
Pre-COVID,
Club. That's a club.
Right. And then the other one, similar idea, similar kind of layout. I think they might have a couple extra tables, but it's mainly bar, huge dance floor, and that's really about it.
Okay, then that defines. You can always look at.
Yeah, I wasn't going for the bar thing. I knew what you mean. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, because some people go, "Oh, I work in a club," and you go there and it's a bar with lights, and that's not a club. There's two different mentalities especially when it comes to what we're talking about on the mic. So you're saying they're talking about other nights or doing drink specials?
No, just like whatever the drink special is. That like focusing mainly just that night. Trying to just get them attacking the bar for something.
Yeah, if the place is bouncing enough, you don't have to worry about that because the bar is. But here's something that I've never told this story on here. I love this story so much. One of the places I spent at up until COVID, I was there every week, and they decided they wanted to do a country night on Wednesdays. So they were trying it. Nobody was really showing up, but I would still do the announcement. Hey, in case you guys are interested, Wednesday night we have a country night. As soon as I say that, the whole place boos. Booze. And I smiled. I said, hey, I'm just telling you about it. I ain't gonna freaking play it. And went into the next songs. I was like, yes, I love these guys. So it, like I said, you get a little bit of everything. I know places that have two rooms. One talk, other room don't, because you're to play music that people can get away from this room and grab a drink. And everyone's purpose to grab drinks in here. So it varies. That's all I can say. It varies. So the style of that. Do you feel that you've ever, like John had sent a message earlier, and I don't want to jump off subject, but the message you sent, do you feel that mentality that Dan was talking about at those types of venues is affecting mobile events like weddings and parties and stuff when it comes to microphone use? And
that's what kind of getting to that is that somebody
I jump ahead, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. That's kind of where we're headed to. Is there was a comment on a show that Mike Walter and Joe Bunn had put up, and someone had made the comment that they're seeing more DJs who are getting more into the mixing and less into the microphone side of things, which if you follow Joe and Mike is the microphone guy, and he will be the one to hype the people. He'll make the announcements, and then during some songs, he'll be the one to try to build that energy by posting a line type of thing is what he refers to as. For weddings and the right crowd, it's a great, great tool. That's not Joe Bunn. Joe Bunn is more of the mix person, making the announcements, introducing the wedding party, doing the basics, and then he's going to let his music do the talking. The person is basically saying that they're seeing more of the Joe Bunn type requests and the Joe Bunn type performance in their local market over what we were doing a few years ago, which would be closer to what Mike Walter was doing, where it's going to be more of posting the music a little bit so people can sing along with it, or they can scream along, what have you.
I have a thought behind that movement. I said this a couple years ago, because anything in life, if you want something to change, 99% of the time you have to wait for, and I don't mean to disrespect anybody by the way I'm about to say this, but the previous people who are kind of the ones in charge, you have to wait till they leave the scene, whether it be passing away with age. Like I said, I don't mean to disrespect anybody, but that was a thing that was expected, because I think a lot of people have had wedding DJs where they say, hey, I want it to be just like the club, but they forget about grandma who does not want that for any means of anything. Right. But their parents may have been club goers when they're younger, so it's a little bit more acceptable. So as we go on, if you have parents that are a little bit more acceptable to that scene, they might be a little bit more open to that being more of a feel. And that's why I think maybe we're seeing the switch, because you're seeing a generational thing where people that, gosh, I can't believe I'm about to say this. People my age are becoming grandparents. Mm-hmm. Shoot me now. And I think that movement of mentality, like I said, as one passes away, this one comes in and they have a little different mentality of the way things should be, and they're more accepting of that, and that's why I think you're seeing more of that maybe.
See, and I thought as we got into this generation that was doing prior to TikTok and Snapchat, but once we started moving into the social media world and everyone could make their profile and everyone could become the star of their own show, I was really seeing the love story was coming out in the wedding market, and I was thinking to myself, this is going to become the thing that you're going to have to do at every wedding, because people are going to want to continue to tell their story. It's all about me. Here's my story. Come and be part of my day and experience me. And I thought that was going to become the thing. And yet that's not what I've been picking up the last couple of years when I'm getting phone calls and such, is that and maybe it's just the people that I'm working for just aren't that the right person, but I'm not seeing that whole look at me. I want everything to be wrapped around, my personality, my desires, as I do on Facebook or my social media of, where I'm the star. And that kind of surprised me. I expected to have more of that instead of less of that as we started working with these younger couples. I don't understand it, truthfully.
Well, one of the things I feel like we're talking two different parts of the night. We're trying to put them in all into one. So for example, first off, to talk what you were talking about, John, with the the talking about them and setting that portion of the night. I still think that is there. In fact, I will say this, the love stories is something that I've had in my repertoire now for, I think I did my first one this fall of 2018. Yeah, fall of 2018. And then I did another one that January, and then I didn't do any more. Mm-hmm. I've got 3 in 5 weeks, of the style that I'm doing. Suddenly, sure. Like it's caught on. So I think that telling of the story is still there. But the second portion of the night comes to that mixing and the emceeing over, or the hyping and all that over top. I feel that that's a little bit different, and I see them as two portions of the night, depending upon how you're handling it. I do feel that they still want their story told. They still want that attitude, but I think too often they were kind of in a situation, or they've been to a bunch of weddings where the DJ was nonstop on a microphone. Mm-hmm. And so there's been some pushback from that. And I feel like that was, something I ran into before also, which was some of the guys in my market. Oh my God, they were the top guys, but it was like, they never shut up. And so what ended up happening was it suddenly seemed like it was all about them. It was all about that DJ. And maybe they weren't doing it the proper way to work it so that it wasn't about them and it seemed like it, or maybe it was just an impression that the couples had. But that really was some pushback that came. And so for my personal style, the way I've never been to an event Joe's done, but the way you've described Joe's thing, where I do a lot of this stuff in the beginning, I do a lot of my personality, my connections and everything else with that. And when the music comes, I'm mainly letting that do the talking with a little hype here and there. I mean, a little, just enough to kind of keep that energy going, and maybe kind of set them up a little bit more. But I do feel that those are two different times of the night as far as what our clientele are going to want. I think most of them are very comfortable with that stuff up front. And it's the second side, which varies, I think, a lot from couple to couple, or even level to level of clientele.
Let me ask a question here. We've all been to the DJ Expo, and we've been to events that they hold showcasing artists where it was nothing but scratching, mixing, and other ones it was nothing but a couple people on a microphone yelling for an hour and a half. Like Dan's talking about a good, what I would presume would be a good balance. How do you feel about that yourselves as people who do these things? What do you two like when you go to a wedding? What do you like to see as a guest?
John, you want to take it first?
From my standpoint, I want someone who's going to make announcements and make them clearly and concisely. I don't want someone who's going to be talking into the microphone like this all night, so it sounds terrible. It's got to be something that they're knowing what they're doing. They're making the announcements so they can be intelligible for the crowd. Do I want a person who's going to hype up the things later in the night? It's not my style. I mean, I can appreciate it, and it's like, oh, that's kind of, that was neat what he did there, that type of thing. I could see that being, a part of my thought process. But I think I would be looking for someone who comes across a little bit more polished than having a crappy microphone or sound system in which I could not hear them. That's probably my biggest pet peeve when it comes to any performer in a microphone. If I can't understand what they're saying easily, then it's time to tune them out and move on to whatever else there is. So that's my biggest beef with that.
So very similar. I think the style that I like happens to be the style that I'm most comfortable with, which is very, almost a polished master of ceremonies setup in the very beginning. I don't like the ones that are over the top hyping, like going into intros. Like I feel like you're leading us too much. It's too early. Like we haven't built that rapport. And the ones that are like trying to get you to go over the top, it's like, I'm just not there yet. I do like a little bit. I do like the little bit of a flavor of some hype when it gets to open dancing, just again, to kind of cater it. What I don't like is the ones that try and do a hype, but do it as a radio DJ. You know what I mean? Like they're trying to hype, like, hey, for all the ladies, we've got this one. And it's like the attempt's there, but that just falls flat. And so to me, I kind of like that good mix, because I also appreciate somebody who's able to do a little bit of both. I will say the weddings that I've been to where there's been a lot more hyping has been also 2-person teams, to where the DJ is playing and the MC, if he's done with all of his stuff earlier, it's like, all right, what do I do now? All right, I guess I'm going to hype him up,
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where I feel like there's been a lot more of that happening, and probably also why I just do it sparingly, because it's me. Going back to that comment though that you mentioned earlier, John, on the YouTube, one of the things that I feel could be making the reason why there's been more of a focus on the mixing and less on the MC. I almost wonder if, as DJs, because it's becoming a little bit more customary and even easier for us to mix, that those that typically haven't are a little bit more willing to, and as a result, they're not comfortable doing both at the same time. And so now becomes, okay, I'm going to focus on this because I almost feel like I need to, and they're not able to, bring one thing in with one hand and hold the microphone with the other. That's a guess, but I mean, that's one of the things that came to my mind when you posted that comment in our group this morning.
I think you made a good point there, Dan. I think that what you said, is it builds you said that the person had not built a connection with the crowd yet, and how that can make a big difference. If they do make that connection, then they can be a little bit more silly and loose. But if they haven't and they're driving that home, that can seem really awkward.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And
go ahead.
Yeah, and then one of the areas when you have, and I have seen DJs who have played this role, and there have been times I felt even I've kind of crossed the line into this, is where you're working with the microphone, you're doing some things, and you're getting a response from the crowd, and then before long, because of that feedback, you find yourself almost taking a center stage, where you become, to a point, a star of the show to a lesser extent. And I wonder if that becomes a problem, that sometimes when we are on the microphone and we do that and we say something, we have a clever little quip that just happens to work, and then you get that response, and then there's that part of you is like, oh, well, if you thought that, if you like what I'm doing now, just wait, kind of a thing. And it's just that human nature that a person has to continue down that road. And I wonder if things such as that, by the people who were engaged, we built that little relationship during the dinner time, whenever that was, they loved it. But there might be those people that are sitting on the over by the bar that were drinking earlier in the night and didn't hear some of the setups to it, and now are thinking that, hey, this person's like full of themselves. All they're doing is, it's all about them, or however they would view it. And I wonder if things like that happen unintentionally, but we end up hurting ourselves more by doing things such as that. I don't know. It's one of those I've thought of and not sure how to handle it.
I have Mike, remind me before we're night's over to ask the question that I was thinking of asking before, but this goes right along with what John said. In my book, I talk in there about there are two types of people in what we do. There's the entertainer and the artist. And the entertainer will say to you, sit back in your seat, you're about to be entertained. and where the artist says, get up out of your seat, come with me, I'm going to take you on a journey. And if you can find that balance, that's a magical thing, but not everybody has that strength to. Sometimes you're either one or the other, and then if you're one, you become one of two things. You either become a, hey, look what I can do person, or I'm getting so lost in what I'm doing, I didn't even know you were there. And both of those in extremes can be. So you have, in my mind, there's a 4-directional dynamic there. Yeah. That you have to try to find that blend of those, and that's when you connect with the crowd connects with themselves, and you all lose yourself in the moment. And that's the magical thing. But it is a what can I say here? It is an honest lawyer riding a unicorn. It's that rare. You know?
I like what John says in the chat. They've been talking baseball, but John Colley finally threw something in here. There's a different set of rules when you're playing for a client versus a crowd. And I would say even to the point that clientele, as far as like weddings or birthdays or bar mitzvahs, to where you have a guest of honor that you're playing for versus the crowd, because when you're in a club or a bar type of scene, I know it's all about driving the money. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of promotion in a way that you're trying to do for yourself, so that the nights that you're there are the nights where they're busiest, right? Like, they're going to make their money on the bar, but also you've got the crowd coming in because they came to see you. And so there becomes more, okay. I know.
Yeah, just because in today's crowd, I just don't see people following DJs anymore.
Right.
So,
but hyping,
I know what you mean.
Right.
You want to make them so happy they want to.
Or
right.
At least they know the night you're there. They're not going to follow you from bar to bar, but they know the night you're there, it's going to be a good night. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So there becomes a little bit more when that happens, a little bit okayness, for lack of better terms, to be that self-serving, to kind of get that all about me, whatever. But when it's a bride or a bar mitzvah or, those kind, you're any hyping that you do needs to be met with equal or more focus on them. And I think that one keeps you grounded, because if you're consciously thinking about it, I also think it's a little bit easier, because that to be honest with me, that's my favorite type of hyping. Let's hear it for Bobby and Susie.
Yes.
It's all about them tonight. Or, one of the things that always used to drive me nuts, or I maybe the most uncomfortable, was when I would get to the end of a night and like we'd finish, I'd play the last song and I'd be like, all right, everybody have a great night. And they'd look at me and they'd start clapping. And I'm like, no, like, it's like, no, like it just, that was not my personality. I didn't like it. It just felt weird. So now, before they even get a chance, when that song is coming down, one more time, let's hear it for Bobby and Susie who got married today. Now, even if they were thinking about looking at me, or any applause that may have come from me is directed towards them, whether they meant it for them or not. And it, to me, it makes it so much nicer and again, easier, maybe not, but to focus it on them rather than trying to just general hyping.
So what's
out of that, don't you?
What's gonna happen then if you get a night where they, at the end when you're done, they clap and then come up, hey, can I get my picture with you? Hey, where are you gonna be at next? Hey, can I get another picture with you? And stuff like that.
Have you seen me? That doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Well, it shouldn't happen to me, but it does. But I think that's in, like you said about the right client. In the clients that I deal with, I create an atmosphere where people connect in the moment. And they see that I'm in that same moment, jumping around, being just as happy as them. And it's not me pointing at me. It's they realize that they found something special in that moment. Not me. I didn't deliver it. They may have seen, oh, he's a DJ, but they found something in themselves in that moment. And that was my goal, like you said, pointing it out. My goal even as a DJ is to make them forget that I'm there and just lose themselves on the dance floor. That's my goal. I want them to lose themselves so much they lose their mind and just want to come back. And that's again, that getting the people in that moment, whether it be through vocal stuff or DJing, is a tough balance. Now, the question I want to ask John and Dan, the MC's MC of our business is Big Daddy, and he has a style, and I've only seen him at the expos. Mm-hmm. All right, so he's a freaking awesome guy, but when he and some of the other guys do events, it's like you can't hear the song because they talk so much. Is he like that, and is that a style people like? If he's like that, he may not be anything. I don't, like I said, I'm not judging him. I'm not anything. But what is a person with that much experience and personality and voice at a wedding and stuff? Is he that way at the weddings, or is he split himself up like Dan said? One part of the night's one thing, one's another.
I would say that's probably more that, where there is the differentiation from the early to the late. I think you're also seeing in Big Daddy's world, he's a bar mitzvah DJ. And that's
totally different, yeah.
Yeah, and then that's going to be another different world altogether. But yeah, I think you see more hyping than you would see at a show, because at a DJ convention, the songs are, we're playing a 30-second clip, and that's too long, and we've got to be quick and bang, 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 and doing all these things that would be spread over an hour time frame. Right. We're doing it in 10 minutes. So I think that, but Big Daddy is more comfortable on a microphone than a lot of people when it comes to talking over the music or doing different things, and that's his style, and that works for him because people have seen that and they either like it or they are not going to call him. It's just as simple as that. Yeah. But he's being honest and genuine. This is who I am. This is what you're going to get. Whereas, and I think that's an area that some DJs get hurt with, is that, hey, how much do you charge? This is what I charge. Great. And the conversation never goes on. And now here comes someone that's just basically letting my music talk. And now the guest or the client is expecting someone to be on the microphone hyping the crowd. I want Mike Walter, but I hired Joe Bunn, and I didn't, they didn't ask the questions to find out if Joe Bunn was going to do a Mike Walter show. And Joe Bunn didn't ask the questions to find out if they wanted Joe Bunn or Mike Walter. And we're just using those names for those of you out there.
Right, as you guys, in your styles, do you prompt them up front on your style? Is that something that should be approached that way as opposed to the other?
I try to, and that's the conversation as far as how they're wanting to have things go, and we talk a little bit about where if they go, when they go out. Back when we used to go out, where do you guys go out on a Saturday night? What kind of thing? What's a fun date night? And you find out that sometimes they're like, oh yeah, we go out to. There's a couple of clubs we go to. Well, I kind of know those clubs and what they do. One's a hard rock place where it's basically rock and roll, and one's more of an urban where it's hip hop pretty much all night long. That's a starting point. From there, it's like, okay, when it comes to engaging with the DJ, early on, you will want the announcements made and such. After that, once we get into the evening, how much do you want to have the DJ engaging, or is it something you just are going to want to dance, or how is this all going to fit to you guys? Kind of envision this, and I'm asking kind of, or saying,
do they know even at that point what they want?
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they're like, hey, we want somebody who's going to help us have a good time. And that's generally telling me that that's someone who's wanting. And there are times where like, yeah, we just want someone who's going to play the music. We don't want to hear from the DJ. And that's actually what I'm hearing more and more, is we don't want to hear from the DJ after the spotlight dances are done until the very end of the night. When you basically say, now we're going to shut it down. That's come out. And I think part of that is because of, as Dan referred to earlier, they've seen DJs who are on the microphone all night long, whether they were making the next song's going to be this one, or if it was like, everybody put your hands up in the air, woo, for the 47th time.
Redundancy.
And precisely. It's like there's other ways to do things to work with the crowd. And
Mike Walters does have a lot of little tricks that he does that get people to do something, and it's almost on a subconscious level to where it's not saying do this, but you end up doing it. And that's that again, where I say that you get that balance of connection with the crowd in that way, where they almost forget you're doing that, but you're actually doing it. That's a magical little thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I remember Randy Bartlett talking a lot about that as well. Just kind of this idea of, a good MC, a good mobile event MC will say something that the crowd was probably going to do anyway, but do it just early enough that they get credit for it, or it makes it sound like they were going to tell them what to do. And then the crowd follows them even more for the next one.
Mm-hmm.
So, just kind of one of those little tricks. And, that's true. I mean, if you study, and that's one of the things I love about Mike Walter is the fact that he studies audiences and he studies the craft and how to tweak it and stuff like that, so that he's always learning a way to react to that crowd in a different way that again, that subtleness, that almost subliminal, like, you're going with me. I'm doing it, and you're going to do it because you want to. Yeah.
That's a good way of looking at it. Make them want to when they don't. That's see, again, in my book that I'm writing, I write a whole chapter about lies and manipulation, and it talks about how we as entertainers it's a very manipulative business, to where our job is to create an emotion or feeling somehow, some way, through talking, playing, flashback song, whatever, and to do that so subtly that it becomes subconscious. That's a ninja, I love that. I've seen DJs do it with music. I've seen people do it on mics. Special.
In the chat room, I just put a link for an example of Mike Walter talking about audience participation and how he does some of that. Just for those of you who have never seen any of his things, this little video clip will probably help you get an idea of what we've been talking about when it comes to Mike Walter. MJ, you mentioned the whole concept of losing yourself in the moment on the dance floor. That's kind of a goal of yours. And I wonder if that's something we're going to see more of in 2021, is the desire for people to do that. Basically, they've just gone through and there's all these things going on. And in the case of early events where the guests aren't showing up and there's all these stressors that got us to this point, that's going to be a bigger thing for people to get lost in the music, and they're on that dance floor and they're just having a great time. Meaning that we have to have a little bit more appreciation for keeping that flow going that maybe we've had in the past, because they're going to want to be out there and just having a good time for maybe 10 to 15 minutes at a shot. Secondly, is that using the microphone might be one of those things that, unless it's used as a gear change intentionally, that it might be one of those things that's a buzzkill, for lack of a better way to describe it, when we get into that dance time of the night. And that it may be 2021 is going to be lesser of a year to be using the microphone, and more important to really focus on keeping that dance floor tempo consistent, so people can go out there and just let the worries of the world go away.
Go ahead.
No, I just say I like to look at it as, like I said, it is a mental manipulation through so many different tricks. Just like Mike Walter has the ones, where he says something, I will mix differently. Well, I actually named the style of mixing called dumbing it down, and you're mixing in a way that is not those quick pops. Quick pops, you're taking them across something, and you start out early on by connecting with you and them by saying something on the mic. That's why I say I usually do my welcome very early, and that's where I make the connection with them. But the song I pick right after the connection makes them connect to themselves, a sing-along or something that drops them, brings them, unifies them. And then you just take them on that journey to where they just want to be right there, that it's that fear of missing out, FOMO, that they don't want to leave the floor because they have FOMO. And you just, it's a night of taking things in different directions and doing the left turns to play something stupid to get them just laughing, and then bring it right back. And that's what the whole thing's about. But if you can make that crowd just lose themselves, that's the whole thing. I don't know, you guys dance much. I know Dan likes to dance, I know that. But as a person who gets out on a dance floor, there are nights that I've gotten out there and I couldn't tell you who was standing next to me because I was having so much fun just dancing. Mm-hmm. And if you can get people to do that, that's gold. And if you can get a room to do that, where you can't get them to stop, where the music's down, the lights are up, and they're singing songs, music's off, lights are up, they're singing songs and still dancing, and the bouncers are like, can you get them out of here? I'll try.
Yeah, well, just like
so It's that, but I think that can be anybody, no matter your mixing ability. I don't think it has to be that you're a great mixer. It's a mentality of programming. It's a mentality of, like I said, you have to be able to read that crowd in that moment. They're a live, living, breathing thing. You can't just throw numbers at them. You have it's a living thing that you have to work with every moment. Give and take. I don't know. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
No. So I feel like this year is gonna evolve itself. So in the beginning part of the year, as you first get into your events, I almost feel like you're gonna have to do more of that hyping, more of that drawing them out, more of that forced excitement, for lack of better terms, because they're gonna be a little bit more hesitant. Like, they may want to get out on the floor, they may want to get out and dance, but they're going to be a little bit more pulled back. And I think that also, going back to Big Daddy and the expo things, I think that's why some of the hype in that he does is ramped up at an expo show, because I mean, for the most part, it's a big sausage fest, right? So like, guys are not out there dancing per se until we get so caught up in following him and the hype and the lights and everything that's going on that suddenly it's like, oh, I mean, watch, go to the pool parties or whatever in the beginning when it's just a DJ playing and there's not really anything happening, and you've got a couple of people that are dancing and you got most everybody going, like, just staring up at the person.
But how many of those people, like, again, how many of those DJs are playing to a dancing crowd? Because what I see at the expo is I see the Big Daddy side where it's all talking, and then you go to the Scribble side where it's all mixing. I think there's people that want to dance.
I'm talking in the party part. I'm not talking the performance part. But there's been a few of the parties there's a few of the parties I know what you're talking about that are the Scribble, the scratching, and it's like everybody's staring. But even some of the other ones that are playing party hits, that are mixing well, that are purposely geared a set that should be a dance out party, and you've got some that are, and you've got a large portion that are just staring up, and then you get that hype going, and that pulls it in. I have a feeling some of our crowds, especially in this earlier part, are going to be like that. They're gonna kind of stare because they kind of forgot what to do, and then they so you lead them and you pull them, and then as they've been to a few, whatever, and maybe even in the course of the night, all right, you can dial it back because you've already primed that pump and now they're ready to go. Or you get to fall. It's a good bet that they've been to at least one event of some form or fashion, whether it's been a night out or another special event for somebody, that you can kind of use those people to be your prime pumpers,
right.
Primers.
How important is alcohol? Because in my business, you can just look at the crowd and go, they're not ready yet. They haven't had their second drink. That sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm worried about one of my first weddings this year, which is a dry wedding. Yeah, first wedding, like one of the first weddings, and it's a dry wedding.
You're going to work hard. You're going to earn your money that night.
and not to there's some other. I'll share some other details about this place when we're all said and done. The venue's a challenge to begin with. I love the place, but a dry wedding with this venue, it's going to be hard.
Cool.
Yeah.
John, you look like you wanted to say something really important and life-changing.
No, actually, I was just kind of listening on the things, and then John Colley there mentions a lot of psychology in delivering our delivering and performance that most people don't realize, and as you kind of just sit and think about that, and that's so true. And I think this was one when I was moving into a multi-system and got lucky and got a couple of really good DJs who could grasp that, because it's really tough to teach.
Yes.
But they could grasp that. And then when you start to get more and you're like, oh gosh, look at these first two DJs. They're awesome. I must be great. I must be the best teacher ever. And then you just assume that everybody gets it. And then you get to the point where it's like, some people just don't comprehend that, because there is so much of that working of the crowd and having a gut feeling of where to go and what to do, when to use the microphone, when to use a song, when to use a drop, or maybe to cut a song and drop a part of a song, all these little nuances. It is that's why science.
I think that's one of the reasons why, when you're looking for other people to add to your system, their ability to DJ is not something you look for. I mean, I know that we use Mike Walter and Joe Bunn. They both have very different philosophies, and they've been very vocal about it. Joe likes to find DJs and then train them in his ways, and Mike would rather the person never touched a controller before in their life, and he likes to find those people persons, those people that can have a conversation, that can be personable, because they're the people who are going to be able to identify what's happening out there faster than someone who just knows what buttons to push, and then train them the right way with the equipment. And I think that's spot on. I mean, there's a lot of people watching and observation that goes into what we do. If your head, that's why one of the reasons why they say having computer face, Serato face, VDJ face, whatever, is so bad, because you're not observing what's out there. You're not feeding off of what's out there if your head's there.
Yeah, it's there was a night that I was DJing, and it was getting ridiculously wild, to the point where they had a couple high top rounders at the place. And I have pictures of this where girls were climbing up on top of the high top rounder. So we're talking, I don't know, 1.5 foot round. Like if I was standing there, it's like this, it would be this high on me.
42
They're
inches
climbing up on this thing, a couple of them throughout the room dancing, and the bouncers are like, you got to calm this room, get on the mic or something and get them off of there. I said, I'll calm it down. And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, just watch. And I took a song to a point, and I said, I'm not going to lose the crowd. And then I went to the next song after that. They got down off there, but they were still there. And I said, watch this third song. I said, the guys will go to the bar, the girls will stay here. They did that, and then the next song I went into, I said, watch, they're all going to come back out on the dance floor, but they'll be in a more respectful mindset. And I did that and he's like, how do you do that? And it's just, I think, experience where you see the crowd to where I manipulated them into calming the frick down, grabbing a drink, then coming on back out and joining us.
See, and that's the magic
without saying a word.
And that's really the magic of playing music from Huey Lewis and the News, is that you can go.
No, they go crazy on that.
Bring the crowd back. And they're ready to be party. Okay.
No, because I look at music a lot differently than most people do, because I see songs as being sing-alongs. I see songs as being dance-alongs. Even if it's not a line dance, you have dance-alongs, because if there's a clap section in there or a fist pump, that is something that unifies them. So you can unify them through movement. You can unify them through the songs they sing, just a hook. You can unify them through something that they relate to. If it's something going on at that time and you just drop that, like at college, any college song that says the word college in it, you're going to have a good reaction. Stuff like that. There's a lot of, like I said, in my book, there's that whole chapter. People, you might think it's about me talking about people lying, but it's about us, the entertainment business as we are. We, like, even right now, those of you watching right now, we are trying between the three of us to talk just enough to keep it entertaining without one of us talking too much.
That never happens.
But it's funny, like, as I think about this, I'm like, just that idea of taking them on that journey for the, those 4 songs, and thinking forward enough that you could pick out those 4 songs to do what you want. Most likely you did it in a manner of mixing that was smooth, not just cut mixes. And you had and I would probably bet they were probably even pretty darn close in key too, just because my guess.
Well, you can change a crowd's mood by changing the key too.
That's true.
So if you're in a minor key, you can go to a major key and make the crowd happier without them even knowing that. So that in itself is its own thing.
That's true. But knowing you and knowing what I know about you, I'm sure that all 4 of those hit every possible positive way of doing that. And there wasn't something that was off. Not to toot your own horn, but, or not to toot your horn too much, but in some aspects, I think that's probably why some DJs become, as John, we keep going to John's comments in the chat, and he's on fire tonight. To where, he says, great mixes, no talk, bad DJ, too much talk and meh mixes, bad DJ. Got to find a balance of the fact that some DJs use that microphone as a crutch instead of taking the time to think, how could I get through this in a way that isn't just get on the microphone and do something.
Yeah, I probably think more than the average DJ, and I always thought that everybody did what I did until I started hanging out with John. And because I like I said, when you look at virtual DJ's key thing, you don't have to necessarily, it has what's called a key difference. So you don't have to look at the key of the song, you just look at the difference. So if it's 0, the 2 songs are in the same key. But if you take that 6 off, then that takes that into a what's called a minor key harmonic, to where it creates a minor harmonic key between six different in the opposite directions. And I will use that at nights to take it to a different spot, to where maybe I want to slow it down and make it like a hip hop thing where everybody just chills out and just, rocks, grinds, maybe, So I guess people don't. It's just part of my mind. I can't turn it off. Like I was talking to a friend the other day about DJing. I said, you can't go to a restaurant and hear a song without thinking, at least for me, oh yeah, this song would mix into that, or it's on the same key as this, or I normally mix this, but I bet this would work. And you can't enjoy music. I mean, I can't turn it off. As DJ, what's his name? Jazzy Jeff says, he goes, I hate my inner DJ so much. The one that plays the songs in your head. Yeah. Oh, I totally get that. Somebody else out there goes, I don't understand.
I don't get
Trust me. Yeah.
We should wrap things up here, guys. So coming up next, Howie and Jimmy are going to be in the chill room, DJNTV.com/chill. They're going to be talking about basically what happens when you're getting these last minute calls where the DJ can't make it, or there's some emergency things that pop up. The guys are going to dig into that a little bit and chat about that tonight. So you can go to DJNTV.com/chill and kind of hang out in the background, shut your camera and mic off while they record. And then after that, turn it on and have a great evening of chatting there. Tomorrow night, Ben Stowe and I are going to be taking the night off. So you'll have Jay and Brian hosting the chill room. Again, DJNTV.com/chill. They'll be doing that at 10 o'clock Eastern tomorrow evening. And then, MJ, what do you got Wednesday night?
I am bringing back one I did last month on Twitch. I'm bringing it to the YouTube side. Where do I get my music?
Excellent.
The last time we did it on Twitch, and there wasn't a whole lot of people there, but like I said, I get asked that question so much, so I'm diving into all the places I get it, why I choose it, what I look for, all those kinds of things, so you can create a mentality and find what works best for you.
Excellent. That sounds good. And that's Wednesday night at 9 o'clock Eastern. So you guys can pop out to, we'll have the links and such available later in the week. So, I think that's it. I've covered our bases.
No one said Mega Seg. Oh.
Now you did.
Yeah, you did. It's all right.
We have 2 drinking games now.
Yeah.
We need 2 different drinks.
No, there's it. Well,
it takes too much.
I did bring out my new Perfect Portals, who's one of the new sponsors of DJNTV. So I'm ready for some hot cocoa, except today it's 84 degrees outside. So it's like, yeah, I'll do that next week when it's probably going to be in the 50s, where it's supposed to be in the 50s. So.
Very cool.
Oh, my goodness. Well, on that note, guys, we do want to thank you all, guys and ladies. Thank you all for taking the time out of your Monday night to join us. Hopefully you learned a lot. Hopefully you had some fun. And if nothing else, you just laughed at us and enjoyed your evening. But we do appreciate you for taking that time. Have yourself a wonderful night. We'll see you next week.
Good night.
Bye.